While a millionaire was dining at one of the city's most exclusive restaurants, the last thing he expected was for a waitress to approach and say, "Excuse me, sir, but my mother has a ring exactly like yours." He looked at the ring, the one that had been in his family for generations, and felt the world stop. There were only 3 rings like it in the world. One was with him. Another had disappeared 25 years ago. And the third was supposed to be buried with the woman he had loved most and lost forever. The restaurant's dining room was enveloped in an elegant silence, broken only by the discreet clink of cutlery and the soft murmur of conversation among the guests. A subtle aroma of fresh herbs and aged wine filled the air. Lit candles on each table cast gentle shadows across the diners' faces, creating an intimate, almost timeless atmosphere. In the corner, a middle-aged man with a rigid posture and a distant gaze was dining alone. Henry Anderson, a hotel magnate, came here every year on the same date, always to the same table. That day, etched into his emotional calendar, was the anniversary of the opening of the first inn in his chain. The dream he built alongside Emily, the woman he loved, the woman he had lost. He swirled his wine as if searching for answers at the bottom of the glass. His face, weathered by time, looked even more tired that night. He wore an impeccable suit as was his custom, but behind the polished elegance there was something broken. On the ring finger of his right hand gleamed an old gold ring, set with a ruby at its center and intricately carved with a family crest. The heirloom passed down through generations, symbolizing honor and continuity. "Good evening, sir. Have you decided, or would you like a few more minutes?" The soft voice pulled him from his thoughts. Henry looked up to see a young woman with a gentle expression and bright eyes. The server smiled politely, but there was a hint of curiosity beyond mere formality. "Bring me the house special, and a bottle from my private cellar," he replied almost automatically. "Certainly." She made a note, then hesitated before turning away. "May I ask something? Excuse me for intruding." Henry raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "That ring you're wearing, my mother has one identical to it. It's remarkable. I've never seen another quite like it." For a moment, the world seemed to stop. Henry's eyes widened. He placed his wineglass on the table with painstaking slowness, his face drained of color. "Excuse me." "The ring," she repeated, a bit unsettled now. "The one on your right hand. It's exactly like my mother's. A ruby and a crest, just like that." Henry remained motionless. His heart pounded harder than it had in years. It was impossible. That ring was unique. The matching pair had been divided between him and Emily on their wedding day. She took hers when she died, or rather, when she vanished forever in that cursed accident 5 years ago. "What is your mother's name?" Lucy hesitated, surprised by the direct question. "Emily Campbell." Henry brought a hand to his chest. The name cut through him like a blade. He almost stood, but his mind wavered between logic and panic. "And her age? How old is she?" 47, she replied, stepping back, alarmed by his insistence. Henry rose slowly. His eyes, once dim, now burned with shock, hope, and fear all at once. "Do you have a photo of her?" "I do, but are you all right, sir?" He said nothing, only stared at her with urgent intensity. A heavy silence hung between them. Though confused, Lucy retrieved her phone from her apron pocket and searched her gallery. After a few seconds, she turned the screen toward him. Henry stared at the image. His eyes trembled. His breath caught. Emily. There was no denying it. It was her, older, perhaps a bit thinner, but with the same gaze, the same smile, the dimple in her left cheek, the small scar beneath her chin, the one she'd gotten the summer she learned to ride a bike. The wine glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor, but Henry did not move. "Where do you live?" he asked in a hoarse voice. Lucy recoiled another step. "Sir, I think I should call someone." "Please," he said, "I need to know. Now." She swallowed, sensing something profound unfolding. There was truth in his eyes, as unsettling as it was. "We live in a small village a few hours from here, not far from the mountains." Henry closed his eyes. He felt the walls closing in, the air thinning. The woman he loved, whom he buried in memory, was alive, and standing before him was a young woman of 23, with the same spark in her eyes that Emily had. "Lucy, what's your birth date?" she answered hesitantly. Henry did the math. The timeline fit all too well. Lucy frowned. "Did you know her? My mother?" Henry took a long moment to reply. When he finally spoke, his voice was choked. "I was married to her. Emily isn't dead. She's the woman I lost 23 years ago." The next night dawned early for Henry. Sleep had become impossible since his encounter with Lucy. That young woman's face, her tone of voice, her mother's name, the damned ring. Everything spun in his mind like a nightmare that insisted on feeling real. He spent hours rifling through old files, digital folders, and even called the private detective he'd hired years before after Emily's supposed death. Nothing made sense. Or rather, it made far too much sense. He didn't know whether he was on the verge of a miraculous discovery or a complete nervous breakdown. One thing was certain: he needed proof. He needed to see her again, to hear from her own mouth that she was alive, that all of this wasn't a trick of grief or a delusion born of a desperate heart. Late that afternoon, he returned to the restaurant. Lucy was there, rearranging tables before the dinner rush. When she saw him, her eyes widened. It was obvious she hadn't expected to see him again, let alone so soon. "Mr. Henry, are you all right?" "I'm not here to dine," he said, his voice steady but weighted. "I need to talk to you about your mother." Lucy frowned. "What exactly do you want to know?" "I need to confirm something. Yesterday, when you showed me her photo, may I see it again?" She studied him for a few seconds. There was something in that man that both frightened and intrigued her. There was no arrogance, only restrained desperation. A man on the brink of something too profound to conceal. Without a word, she pulled her phone from her pocket and opened the gallery. Henry took the device with trembling hands. He looked at the photo again, and another and another. It was her, his Emily. There was no mistaking it. He ran his finger slowly across the screen as though touching a ghost. Every line of her face summoned painful memories. Their sunset wedding, the laughter they shared on the steps of their first hotel, the last kiss before the accident, or before her disappearance. "Lucy, how long have you lived in that village?" "Since I can remember," she answered, still wary. "Why? Has your mother ever told you about your father?" Lucy's eyes narrowed. "She always said he died before I was born, that it was a brief love, and she preferred not to talk about it." Henry nodded slowly, as if each answer were another piece fitting into the puzzle he'd spent his life trying to assemble. A heavy silence fell between them. "I need you to tell me one more thing. Your mother's date of birth." "Emily's," Lucy replied. Henry already knew. He had calculated it himself, but hearing it from her daughter's lips, and now he was almost certain that's what she was, hit him anew. "She turned 47 2 months ago," she added. "But what does that have to do with because my wife, the woman I lost, would be exactly that age today?" Lucy recoiled a step. "No, this can't be right. My mother was never married, and her name never changed." "Yes, it did. Before she was Campbell, she was Emily Anderson." The words hung in the air like a verdict. Lucy shook her head, confused and defensive. "This is madness. You're clearly mistaken. My mother, she never mentioned any of that. And if she had something to hide, why would she start wearing a ring identical to yours? Henry drew a deep breath. Because that ring is part of a pair. Only two were made. One was given to me by my grandmother. The other I gave to Emily on our wedding day. When she died, the ring vanished with her. Lucy went pale. Instinctively, she rummaged in her bag. She pulled out an old, slightly worn printed photograph and showed it to him. In the picture, Emily smiles with baby Lucy in her arms, seated in front of a country cottage. But what caught Henry's attention wasn't the scene, it was what was on the woman's finger. The ring, the missing half of the pair. His eyes filled with tears. He sank into a chair as if his body finally surrendered where his mind still resisted. She's alive, and she's lied to all of us. Lucy gripped the photo tightly. And if it's true? If she has lied her whole life? Henry looked at her. Then we need to go to her. Today. Now. Lucy hesitated, heart racing, mind reeling. If this is all real, then you are your father, Henry finished, voice firm yet shaken, and I will not rest until I know why. The road was narrow, winding through silent hills and dark forests. The car's clock read 3:14 a.m., but Henry was as awake as he'd ever been. Lucy drove in silence, her eyes fixed on the road, while her mind drifted through a storm of thoughts. She still didn't know if she was ferrying a madman to his doom, or if she was about to unravel the story her mother had told her for 23 years. The car crested the final curve, revealing the faint lights of Hilltop Village. A peaceful place where time seemed to slow. Simple cottages of stone and wood dotted the gentle mist of dawn. This was where Emily had chosen to vanish. Lucy parked in front of the little pale blue house. Henry recognized it immediately. This was the refuge his Emily had described to him so many years ago, once a bucolic fantasy, now painfully real. Lucy cut the engine. Are you sure about this? She finally broke the silence. Henry nodded slowly. More than anything else in my life. She stepped out and walked to the door. Fishing a set of keys from her purse, she unlocked it and pushed it open. The house was dark, but a soft light glowed from the back bedroom. She always reads late, Lucy whispered. Henry followed with cautious steps, as though entering a forbidden temple. Lucy paused at the half-open door. Mom? No answer. Gently, she swung the door wider. Emily sat in an armchair, her back turned, wrapped in a shawl and holding a book. Her hair, now streaked with grey, fell loosely over her shoulders. Mom, there's someone here who needs to talk to you. Emily turned slowly. The book slipped from her hands. For an eternal moment the world froze. Her eyes flew open, her face drained of colour as if she'd seen a ghost. Her breath caught. Henry. Her voice was a whisper, a lament, a miracle. Henry took 2 steps forward, his face torn between fury and disbelief. You're alive. Emily tried to rise, but her legs gave out. Lucy rushed forward to support her, but Henry raised a hand to stop her. No, I need to hear it from her. Here, now. Emily looked at him with tear-filled eyes, the honey-colored irises that had once been his home now brimming with decades of hidden pain. I never wanted it to be like this, she managed. But it was, he cut in sharply. You died. You left me alone. You buried me alive, Emily. Lucy stepped back, heart pounding, watching 2 forces collide after an earthquake. Nothing between them was light. Emily drew a deep breath, summoning the courage she'd buried with her old name. I had to disappear. It was the only way to keep Lucy safe. Henry let out a bitter laugh. You faked your death. You destroyed everything. Why? Because you were involved with Nathan Spencer, she said coldly, like a blade thrown in the dark. He threatened me. Said he'd kill you. Said he'd kill me. And our daughter." Henry staggered. "Our daughter?" Lucy let out a low moan. Their world, already a flimsy stage, was collapsing beneath her feet. "He found out I was pregnant," Emily whispered. "He said he'd let me live only if I vanished forever, if no one ever knew about the child. He gave me 2 days. Then I left. I erased everything. I died. For you. For myself." Henry dropped to his knees, the anguish in his eyes unbearable to witness. "I searched for you for months, years, and when they told me your body had been swept away, I believed them." Emily wept silently. "I watched from afar, saw your empire grow, saw you sink, and I couldn't do anything. Because if he discovered I was alive, he would come back to finish what he started." "He's dead," Henry said, his fury contained. "He died 3 years ago, and you still hid." Emily only nodded. Lucy, standing in the corner of the room, finally spoke. "You both lied. To each other, to me. And me. Where do I fit in this story?" Silence fell again. Henry stood and looked first at Emily, then at Lucy. "We need to talk, all of us. But right now, I just want to know one thing." He stepped forward, as if still afraid she might vanish at a touch. "Are you still Emily Anderson?" Between tears, she nodded. "I always have been. I just couldn't be her anymore." Then, in a gesture as fragile as it was powerful, Henry hugged her, not yet forgiven, but as someone who had found a lost piece of himself at the edge of the world. The pre-dawn darkness still clung to Hilltop Village, but time inside the house felt suspended. The reunion had reopened old wounds, and now it was time to unearth their origin. Henry, Emily, and Lucy sat in the small living room. The crackling fireplace cast dancing shadows over their tense faces. Lucy watched the two of them as if she were witnessing a silent trial, her soul torn between the instinct of a daughter and the shock of a lifetime built on lies. Henry broke the silence. "I need to understand, not just for me, but for her," he said, discreetly nodding toward Lucy. Emily met his gaze with a somber look. She was visibly weary, but there was a firmness in her voice that surprised even herself. "When you started expanding the business over 20 years ago, everything was new, exciting, but I could see you were surrounded by dangerous people, not just wealthy, corrupt." Henry held her gaze, neither denying nor shrinking away. "I thought I could handle them. I thought it was the price to pay for building our empire." Emily continued. "One name began to surface too often, Nathan Spencer, a quiet, elegant man who always worked behind the scenes, until one day he showed up at our home, claimed to be your new silent partner." Henry closed his eyes, recalling it all. "I should have cut him off then, but I was trapped. Debts, threats, the wheel was already spinning too fast." Emily rose and walked to the window where the morning mist still blanketed the hills. "I started digging, eavesdropping on your calls, finding documents you never saw. One day I found something in your safe, a contract sealed with blood, literally." Henry went pale. You saw that?" She turned slowly. "I did. And I realized that if I didn't act, we'd both be lost. And when I found out I was pregnant, there was no choice left." Lucy held her breath. Each word from her mother felt like a shard of truth piercing her heart. "I waited for an opportunity. Nathan was watching me. He already knew I'd uncovered too much. Then he came for me." Henry stood, silent fury burning in his eyes. "He threatened you?" Emily nodded. "He knew about the pregnancy. Said that if I didn't disappear without a trace, he'd kill you. He'd make it look like an accident. He'd destroy our name. Our child would be an orphan." Henry paced, tormented. "I tried to get out of that world afterward. I swear I did. I sold shares, cut ties, wiped it clean. When they told me your body was swept away in the flood, I died too." Emily took a steadying breath, eyes fixed on Lucy. "And I died inside for her, to protect her." Lucy stared at her mother, tears filling her eyes but refusing to fall, her body refusing to give in until she heard everything. "Why didn't you come back when he died?" she asked, voice trembling. Emily moved closer. "Because I was afraid. Afraid it would be too late. Afraid you'd hate me. And because the guilt ate me alive." Henry, standing by the hearth, addressed them both. "You did what you thought was right, but you should have trusted me. You should have fought with me." "And if we'd fought and lost," Emily shot back, "I chose to run so our daughter could live, to grow up, even if it meant living away from the truth." Lucy stood. "And you thought it was fair to take me from him, to let me live not knowing who I am." Emily reached for her hand, but Lucy pulled away. "You raised me with love, but you raised me on a lie." Henry approached but respected her space. "I'm guilty too. I was blinded. I chose the fastest road to the top, and I paid the price." Silence settled once more. There were no clear villains, only survivors of impossible choices. Lucy walked to the door and paused, as though feeling the weight of a crossroads. "I need some time, alone, to process all of this." Emily tried to speak, but Henry only nodded. "Go, but come back, please." Lucy left without looking back. The soft click of the door closing sounded like thunder in their ears. Emily sank onto the sofa. Henry sat beside her in silence, a woman who'd faked her own death, a man who'd sacrificed honor for ambition, and a daughter who'd just discovered who she truly was, in both the worst and the best way. Dawn broke quietly over Hilltop Village, but for Lucy, there was no peace in the bucolic landscape around her. She walked alone along a trail through the trees, her feet dragging and her gaze fixed on nothing. Everything she thought she knew about herself now felt fragile, a story written in invisible ink, finally revealed by the harsh light of truth. Daughter of Henry Anderson, daughter of a man she'd known as a customer, as a stranger, as a widower. A name she'd seen in business headlines, on the news, in tales of ventures. And now, her father. She sat on a rock by a stream and pulled her phone from her pocket. She opened the photo of her mother holding her as a baby. The ring on her finger, the protective look, the love, it was all there. But so was the omission, the lie. 23 years, she whispered to herself. A whole lifetime. Back at the house, Henry paced anxiously. Emily watched from the window, her eyes weary from so many sleepless nights. "You need to give her time," she said for what felt like the 100th time. "I've already lost too much time." Henry stopped mid-stride. "I want to get to know her. I want to know how she grew up, what she likes, what she dreams about, what she fears. And I can't do that by just waiting." "If you go now, you'll scare her," Emily said, stepping closer. "Let me go first. Let me lay the groundwork." Henry hesitated, then nodded. Hours later, Lucy returned. She slipped inside silently, her eyes still distant. She found Emily in the kitchen, making tea. Her mother looked at her as though she wasn't sure how to speak or how to apologize. "He really is my father?" The question came without preamble. Emily didn't answer right away. She let the kettle whistle, letting time break the silence. Then, with steady voice, she said, "Yes, Henry is your biological father. He always has been." Lucy nodded slowly. Then the storm broke. "Why? Why did you hide this from me? Why did you make me grow up thinking I was the daughter of a ghost?" "Because it was the only way for you to grow up alive and free." "Free?" Lucy laughed bitterly. "Free from what? From knowing the truth? From knowing my own story? You raised me in a prison of love, Mom. You gave me everything, except the right to know who I am. Emily reached for her hand, but Lucy pulled away. I loved you, the only way I knew how. And now? Lucy faced her mother. Are you going to love me less because I want to know who I really am? Emily swallowed hard and shook her head. Never. Lucy turned to leave and ran right into Henry standing in the kitchen doorway. His look was tentative but full of emotion. In his hands, he held a small, dark wood box. Can I talk to you? Lucy hesitated, then nodded. They went out together into the yard. Henry sat on a stone bench and offered her the box. I wrote this for you when your mother disappeared. I didn't know you existed then, but when I began to suspect, I started writing. A letter, an attempt to speak to a daughter I might never meet. Lucy opened the box carefully. Inside lay a folded sheet of paper and a silver brooch engraved with the Anderson family crest, the same emblem as the ring. Her hands shook as she unfolded the letter. The handwriting was strong, elegant, but lined with pain. If this letter ever reaches you, it means something impossible has happened. And I stand before you with the greatest regret of my life, not being by your side. Lucy read in silence. Henry said nothing, just waited. After several minutes, she refolded the letter. I don't know what to think. I don't know if I want you close, or if I need you to stay away. I understand, Henry said, gazing out at the horizon. I just want the chance to earn your forgiveness, even if it takes forever, even if I have to start from zero. She studied him for a long moment. I don't know if I can call you Dad. I don't expect you to do that now, maybe never, but I'm here, and I won't disappear again. Lucy took a deep breath. Her eyes were still wet, but now there was something else there, a spark of curiosity, maybe of hope. If you want to be in my life, you'll have to do it my way. Henry looked at her with all his sincerity. Whatever your way is. She said nothing more. She just went back inside. Henry remained in the yard, chest tight, but for the first time, he felt that a door, still ajar, had opened in the wall that separated him from his daughter, and in that moment, that felt like a miracle. The days that followed were unlike anything that house had ever experienced. There were no more secrets, but there wasn't immediate peace either. It was like piecing together the shards of an old mirror. Each fragment still reflected the pain of what had been lost. Henry, who had never learned to wait, discovered the power of silence. He spent long hours in the backyard or wandering through the village where no one recognized him as a magnate, only as another man trying to find his place in the world. It felt strange, but liberating. Emily, for her part, rediscovered the Henry she had left behind. Not the ambitious businessman, but the companion of long conversations, the attentive lover, the friend with whom she'd shared dreams before everything collapsed. Lucy watched them from a distance. She tested them, listened in on hushed conversations, noted their exchanged glances. She was part of that puzzle, but she still didn't know if she wanted to fit. One afternoon, after days of saying very little, Lucy asked to speak with them both. They sat on the porch as the sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. A respectful silence preceded her words. I've thought a lot, and I've decided to try. Henry couldn't hide the emotion in his eyes. Emily held her breath. But it's going to be on my terms, Lucy continued, her voice firm. If you want me to be part of these rebuilt lives, you'll have to respect me as I am, not as you imagine I should be. Name them, Henry said softly. The first, Total honesty. I don't want any more watered-down versions, no secrets, anything that involves my past or my future. I want to know. No games, no omissions. Henry nodded. Never again lies. From anyone. The second, Lucy said, looking at Emily, is time. I can't just go from orphan to daughter of a famous businessman overnight. It will take time to trust. Don't rush me. Emily smiled gently. You set the pace, always. And the third? Lucy paused longer, as if deciding whether to say it. Family first. I don't want to be another name on a spreadsheet or an heiress put on display. If we're going to be a family, that has to come before the hotels, the money, the status. Henry stood, approached, and knelt before her. I promise, really. For the first time in a long time, I want to be a father, not a boss, not a magnate, just a father. Lucy studied him for a few seconds, then extended her hand. They shook hands, firmly, honestly. Nothing more needed to be said. That night, the house filled with a different kind of silence. Not the silence of doubt, but of acceptance. Henry and Emily talked late into the night, recalling old stories, laughing at foolish memories that felt like lifetimes ago. In a moment of quiet on the sofa, side by side, Emily broke the spell. Do you forgive me? Henry took his time answering. I'm not sure forgive is the right word, but I want to start over, with you, and with her. Emily rested her head on his shoulder. That's enough. The next day, Henry returned to the central city, but promised to come back soon. He left Lucy an envelope, a paid internship offer at one of the hotel group's properties, with a note, no rush, no pressure. I just want to open the doors. The choices are yours. With love, Henry. Lucy smiled as she read it. She didn't call him Dad, not yet, but something inside her began to accept that in time she might. As she gazed at the night sky from the porch that evening, she felt for the first time that perhaps her story wasn't ending after all, but only beginning anew. 6 months had passed since that afternoon on the porch. Life, still cautious, was beginning to bloom with a new texture, lighter, more genuine. Lucy now lived in Central City in a small apartment near the university. She'd enrolled in the hotel management program, quietly funded by Henry, who made a point of not meddling in the details. The choice is yours. The path is yours. I just want to be nearby, he'd told her. Emily moved shortly afterward. She rented a cozy house just a few blocks from her daughter, and for the first time since she'd run away, began to live without fear. She strolled through the streets, shopped at local markets, and even set up a small sewing studio, a passion she'd loved since she was young. Henry was changing too. His days of back-to-back meetings and endless deal-making had given way to a new rhythm. He still ran the hotel empire, but now his calendar included dinners with Emily, campus visits to see Lucy, and entire afternoons reading books Lucy recommended, even if half the modern management theories went over his head. That afternoon, he waited in the student center lobby, holding a little box wrapped in blue velvet. His tailored suit looked less rigid than before. There was softness in his shoulders and tenderness in his eyes. Lucy arrived smiling, her hair in a messy bun, notebooks tucked under her arm. Sorry I'm late. Extra strategy class ran long. Strategy? You've already outdone me, Henry teased. I've got good mentors, she replied with a half-smile. Want to take a walk? He asked. I know a quiet spot nearby. They walked together to a hidden park tucked between the buildings. A tree-lined path led to a lookout with a sweeping view of the city, a discreet, peaceful place, bathed in the golden light of autumn. Henry stopped. When you were born, I didn't know. And when I found out, I thought it was too late. But today, despite all we've lost, I believe we're on the right beginning. Lucy looked at him silently. He pulled the box from his pocket. I had this made just for you. It's not just any gift. It's a symbol. Lucy opened the little case. Inside lay a modern-designed ring with a classic touch, an oval ruby surrounded by tiny diamonds, and on the inside, discreetly engraved, the Anderson family crest. She swallowed hard and touched the jewel gently. It's beautiful. This is our new bond, an honest beginning, no lies, no past haunting us. Lucy was quiet for a moment. Then she closed the case and tucked it into her bag. Thank you, Dad. The word hung in the air for a second that felt like years. Henry didn't answer right away. He just smiled, tears welling up. You have no idea how long I've waited to hear that. I waited until it felt right, she said. Today was that day. They stood there for a while, in silence, watching the city stretch out before them. More than a ring, more than words, that moment became the true cornerstone of what they were building. A family, fractured, reshaped, but whole again. Not in the same way, but in a new way. Maybe even better. 3 years had passed. Time, with its silent wisdom, had woven a new reality for Henry, Emily, and Lucy. The wounds healed slowly, but with depth. The memories still remained, but they no longer hurt as they once did. Instead, they served as milestones of all they had overcome. The ceremony was discreet, just as they had promised each other. In a garden surrounded by ancient trees, Henry and Emily said, "I do," for the second time. There were no huge crowds, flashes, or society columns, only their closest friends, a few faces from the village where Emily had lived in silence for so long, and Lucy, who walked her mother down the aisle, arm in arm, smiling brighter than ever. Emily wore a simple dress she'd made with her own hands. Henry donned a light grey suit and wore a grin that seemed too big for his face. When they looked at each other during their vows, it felt as if they were signing a pact with the past, but pledging their loyalty only to the future. Days later, the newspapers quietly reported Henry Anderson's most impactful gesture, donating nearly his entire personal fortune to a newly established foundation, Lazos Vivos, led by Emily. The organization had a single purpose: to locate, support, and reunite families separated by abandonment, tragedy, or conflict. It was their way of turning pain into purpose. Lucy now managed one of the network's most respected hotels, the very same where, 3 years earlier, she had served as a waitress. Studious, dedicated, with her mother's critical eye and her father's strategic vision, she had become a benchmark in management with heart. In meetings with directors and shareholders, they called her the Anderson with soul. She found the nickname fitting. On the 3rd anniversary of Lazos Vivos' founding, Henry invited the two of them to a private dinner atop one of the towers in Central City. The banquet hall was empty, except for a table set with crystal goblets, lit candles, and a bottle of red wine, the same label he used to drink alone each year at that first restaurant. "Remember this?" he asked, pouring the wine. Emily nodded, moved to tears. How could I ever forget? It was on this very date that everything began again. Lucy lifted her glass. "The first time I tasted this wine, I thought it was for people way too rich. Today, it reminds me of the start of something worth far more than money." Henry raised his goblet. "To the past that shaped us," Emily added. "To the present that heals us." And Lucy smiled. "To the future we choose, together." Their 3 glasses met with a soft, almost sacred chime. Outside, the city gleamed with lights of every hue. Inside, 3 lives that had nearly been lost finally found the place they belonged, in each other. Not everything was forgiven at once. Not everything was easy. But they were there, and that, for them, was everything. I hope you enjoyed today's story. If you did, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more stories like this. Leave a like and comment below what you thought about the story. See you in the next video.